Doctor Who vinyl record review. Today we'll be continuing the Silva Screen vinyl record soundtrack review series as I take a look at one of the most recent releases, and it is of the second Doctor story, The Invasion, featuring the Cybermen. Now this is a release that I've in fact been looking forward to for quite a long time, along with the 5 Doctors release back there as well. There has been a few delays in production here and there from Silva Screen, but I'm really happy to finally be reviewing it today, as it's been quite a while since the last one. I know that I've covered quite a few vinyls on this channel in the past year, but the last one in this review series would have been the Tristan Carey 60s soundtrack to the first Dalek story, The Daleks, which is an incredibly different soundtrack to this one, along the 5 Doctors one as well. I think, if anything, all 4 soundtracks this year have in fact been different in their own way, having different composers and different instruments, meaning that there is pretty much something for everybody. If you aren't a vinyl fan though, however, you can still watch this review because this actual product is still available in a number of different formats. You can in fact order it directly from the actual Silva Screen website. The actual vinyl itself is only $18.99 as it is a singular release, as opposed to just a double one which are the 5 Doctors release. You can also get the CD version as well if you're a fan of CDs for only $8.99, and you can also get the download album version as well of 44 tracks that is also $8.99 in either the MP3 format or the FLAC format as well. So yeah, there is a number of different ways you can buy this one. Personally, for me, I really enjoy getting the vinyls. I don't know what it is about them. I think it's just the way that they're presented. It just makes it a lot more interesting, and also quite a lot of the 60s related music actually sounds a lot more effective and a lot better in the vinyl record format. So it's one of which that if you have a vinyl record player, I recommend buying this format because it just sounds a lot nicer, and there's a nice novelty behind having a vinyl with Doctor Who music on. So before I actually get on to talking about the music itself, I'm going to go into a little bit of a product review format to take a look at physically what you get for your money in this rather nice looking pretty sleeve as designed by Clayton Hickman. The recent 5 Doctors double LP vinyl record release, they've gone with a really unique, stylish art design cover, which is something of which I'm really happy that they've gone with, especially for the vinyl format. It is a great opportunity to do something more artsy and more eye-catching, as opposed to just following exactly the same layout to the majority of Doctor Who merchandise, something of which that was seen on the vinyl of, say, the Dalek soundtrack or the Survival soundtrack. As lovely as those ones were as well, these 2 recent ones have really upped the bar when it comes to the cover art. I just hope that the other ones follow a similar design in the future. So as you can see, the front of this one is very much following a metal or cybernetic design. So we do have a few sort of metally sort of colours around the side here, including some light blues and dark blues, along with a little bit of silver in there as well. And generally do have a little bit of circuitry towards the top, which has been really nicely blended into the images. So we do have some of the major characters along the side here, including the late Patrick Troughton as the second Doctor, Nicholas Courtney as the Brigadier. Then we do also have the main sort of cyber enemy in the story as well, who's working alongside the Cybermen, who is a great villain from what I can recall. It's been a while since I've actually watched The Invasion, but yeah, I can remember really liking him in the episode. Then along the top you have original television soundtrack, and then we get this lovely red band in the very middle there, sort of featuring almost a little bit sort of dotted Andy Warhol kind of design there, with the Cyberman really nicely standing out with the eyes there, the teardrop eyes in the mouth, really nicely glowing. It really does emphasise that. And then along the opposite side we do have the iconic image of a Cyberman marching down from St. Paul's Cathedral, and then we do also have a Cyberman there coming out of the bottom with a manhole and a helicopter at the very top. I think it may be nice to have Zoe there or something like that, just maybe other than a helicopter, because as nice as it looks, it would have been nice to just have a companion or something. Along the very front we do have the recent 13th Doctor logo, which I know a few people won't be very happy about, but to be honest I think that it suits this one quite well, although it doesn't really stand out too much. And then we get the Invasion in a rather nice silvery design with music by Don Harper, and then special sounds by Brian Hodgson and the BBC Radiophonic Workshop. And then at the very top we do get a little bit more information about this release, including the soundtrack by Don Harper. Then this is the 3rd release out of 8 classic soundtracks on the vinyl series. The back of the vinyl sleeve now, once again, we do continue exactly the same cybernetic design with this really nice contrast between the red and the silver. And then we of course get a cyber trooper there at the very side looking rather cool, some company information at the bottom, some credits at the side, and then we get the all-important track list including side A and side B with all the different titles more so at the top, and then we just get the music numbers there at the very bottom, which once again is rather nice and quite stylish. Up the vinyl now and taking a look on the inside sleeve, as you can see, the major image is once again that rather nice dotted design of the Cyberman marching down from St. Paul's Cathedral, and then what is a really nice little reference is we do have the company running along the top there that actually appeared within the actual story. Then we get a little bit of write-ups from Marquez, who explains the actual album and how it came about, along with a little bit of information about the actual composer being Don Harper, and then on the opposite side we do get a few more promotional images of the different characters throughout the story in a rather nice black and white design. Much like all of the other vinyls in this series, we only have the standard printed black colour in design, and then we do have a label running across the top that has the Doctor Who logo and the Invasion titling. Then what is a really nice feature is on side B we in fact have once again a rather nice image of a Cyberman. But overall, for the Invasion original television soundtrack physical product itself, I think that the vinyl once again has been really nicely presented. I love the artwork along the front. I think that it is really reminiscent of the story narrative, and it kind of links to the different plot themes as well, which is really cool, and I think that it is a really inspired design. So yeah, I definitely recommend picking this up if you have a vinyl record player, and also equally, this is exactly the same cover on the CD artwork as well, so I guess you get to enjoy it even if you don't have a vinyl player, as you can just buy the CD version. So yeah, overall, really nice. I hope that this goes on to inspire the future releases in the original television soundtrack series. Now that's it for the actual product itself. I'm going to go on to the actual music. Now the first thing to note is there is a little bit of a difference between what you get on the vinyl version and what you get on the standard CD or the download. So to start off with, as it actually says on the Silva Screen website, the number of tracks on the download is 39 tracks. However, on the CD or on the download versions there are in fact 44. And I do believe that simply this is down to the amount of space on the vinyl and also what they've decided to present in the vinyl format. Some may not sound very good on vinyl or something like that, so they just decided to keep them absent. However, from what I understand, pretty much the tracks that are absent from the vinyl release aren't really anything major. I do think that all the major tracks on this album are actually present on both releases, so you're not exactly missing out or anything like that. It may just be a few tracks here and there that are around 20 seconds long or something that you won't be getting on the vinyl version, and either way, if they aren't on the vinyl and you still want to listen to them, you can get previews on the website and also on Spotify as well, so it's kind of a win-win situation either way. I think that this release, it will be fair to say, actually pleasantly surprised me, because I was expecting something a lot similar to the Dalek soundtrack of compositions by Tristan Carey, where it is incredibly atmospheric and you have a lot of that noise almost of having the alien atmosphere, kind of the dust sort of going over the planet's surface, things like that, kind of the different winds on the planet that you had very much in the background within the actual story, as opposed to actual music, and that was something that was present very much on the Dalek soundtrack. This one is a lot different. It is in fact something that I found really interesting to listen to, because you have a very big range of lots of different music that is present on this release. I did take a few notes. To start off with, there is a track called Muzak, which I think relating to the company that he works for. But Muzak is a brilliant piece. It's almost like really nice comforting music. It's a little bit like slow jazz. It's very relaxing, very chill. I actually found myself being able to just sit back and listen to this one, which is something that I definitely wasn't able to do with the Dalek soundtrack, because it was almost a little bit, not exactly uncomforting, but it was very clinical, very sort of mechanical in its sort of delivery as well. This one does have music like that, however there is a much bigger variety of the different music tracks that it actually decides to present. So yeah, Muzak is one of those ones that is incredibly chill out. Then you have Hiding, which is kind of more your Cyberman music. I do believe that it was probably used in the majority of the Cyberman scenes. That is very industrial, very mechanical, doesn't really have too much sort of emotion behind it whatsoever, and is pretty much exactly the opposite from the stuff that I've previously been talking about in Muzak. It is incredibly sort of chilling, very cold, and it does sound very much like the Cybermen in that story. And I must admit, I was expecting the Tomb of the Cybermen music on this release that everybody knows. You know, the drum one where it's like that one that's in the 60s constantly all the time. That's not in this release, which I was pleasantly surprised by. I think that the Invasion has a very unique soundtrack because it doesn't have that actual theme on, but instead it's a nice change to have some more sort of strings and more jazz themed music, as opposed to your more sort of colder music as seen in the Wheel in Space and Tomb of the Cybermen. Also the Brigadier and Unit soundtrack in there as well, which once again is a lot different to your Cyberman music that is on this release, because it is once again almost a little bit comedic. I think that it's kind of a bit like an amateur army. It's very upbeat and kind of all happy, and you kind of imagine the Brigadier and all of his army squad hopping out of the vehicles, and it is, yeah, very sort of quite nice to listen to. Once again, it's something you can just chill out and listen to rather nicely when you're sort of doing work or something like that. So yeah, I did really enjoy the upbeat music. It was something very nice that sort of almost separated throughout the chilling stuff as well, giving some really nice variety, as I say, all the way throughout listening to this release. And there is majority, like most of the soundtracks that aren't really the Cybermen stuff, is in fact, I'll put on my notes here, strings and piano question mark, because it did sound very much like sort of rather relaxing strings music with a little bit of jazz in there as well, which I think is something that I wouldn't really expect from 60s Doctor Who. I think if anything, this soundtrack sounds a bit like a James Bond film. I mean, I've not really watched many James Bond films, but from the stuff that I've seen, it seems almost like a spy British movie from, say, the 60s or the 70s, rather than a sci-fi show that has aliens invading Earth and sort of the Cybermen and things like that. It's not really very robotic, and I almost think that the composer, who is in fact Don Harper, he did do a few varieties of different soundtracks throughout Doctor Who, but this is very unique, and it's something of which that I wouldn't really expect. It's not one that jumps out at me immediately, but it is almost like a little gem in the Doctor Who universe, and something of which that I'm glad I actually stumbled across. This being a single vinyl release, you only have two sides, so side A and side B. Side A is the majority of the stuff that has been reconstructed, because for the actual episode it goes into in depth. In fact, on the sleeve on the inside it does say about how they decided to do around 30 minutes worth of music for the 8-parter, and each episode in fact was enlisted 4 minutes worth of music each. So that is the incredibly small budget that they were working on at the time of this story. And inside A we do have in fact quite a lot of different music with actual titles, which is something that Mark Ayres has done. He has gone back and actually gave them titles to make them sound more recognisable. Then in brackets we do have some music 2, music 11, music 12 and so on, because in the actual story, generally as it's seen down here, the additional cues and things like that on side B is just the solid music scores done by Don Harper on the original track, so it is all the essentially unnamed music there. And then we also finish off at the very end as well with some of your stereotypical sort of TARDIS sounds, such as part of TARDIS disappears, all of TARDIS disappears. TARDIS takes off slow and painful, so it's pretty much all your sound effects at the very bottom, which is a nice little feature, although that only takes I think like a few seconds, and then at the very end you do get your cyber invasion music, which is a rather nice piece to end on. I think if anything is the one piece of music that I actually would recognise from the invasion almost instantly, and it's the bit where the Cybermen first invade and they sort of come out of the sewers, and you have the theme of them by St. Paul's Cathedral, and it's that rather drumming music that is in fact rather unpleasant to listen to, I must admit, because it is so inhumane. You don't really have any emotion to it, and it's just the same theme repeating over and over and over. And I was actually listening to this whilst I was at home when I went to go and pick these up, and I had it on at quite a loud volume, and my dogs came in because they were wondering what the hell was going on. So yeah, pro tip, do not listen to this music with 5 dogs because it will scare them very much. Looking for variety or an obscure Doctor Who soundtrack, this is definitely for you. But that said, at the same time, if you're somebody that is looking for an album of music with vocals, then this is something that will not take your fancy, because it is essentially obscure Doctor Who music from soundtracks of 60s Doctor Who, so it's not exactly the most upbeat, and it does sound very unusual. But that said, at the same time, this is probably one of the more listenable vinyls, if that's a word. It's one of the more pleasantly listenable vinyls that has been released so far in the line. Funny enough, along with the 5 Doctors one as well, which I will be reviewing quite soon. Overall, for the Silva Screen original television soundtrack to the second Doctor story, The Invasion, I think that this is a really nice addition to your collection if you're a fan of obscure Doctor Who music, if you're generally somebody who likes the behind the scenes works, if you're somebody that likes compositions, especially if you're a fan of Don Harper, then this is definitely for you. To start with, the actual vinyl itself is brilliant. I think that this actually really nicely suits the vinyl format. It sounds great, the theme tune sounds great as well, along with the Cyberman music, incredibly clunky, and also the chilling, relaxing jazz stuff also sounds very nice, very soothing, very peaceful, and the actual presentation as well, as I was mentioning earlier in the product review format, is beautiful. Clayton Hickman has done an excellent job on this, along with the 5 Doctors version as well. Incredibly stylised, really unique. Some people won't be a fan of the logo at the bottom because it's the new one, but I do think that it looks nice. I love the colours that have been used, the blues and the silvers with that red striking down the side, and the same for the back as well. So I think that if you're a vinyl fan, then this is definitely worth picking up simply for the artwork alone. And if you're somebody that generally just likes the look of it, then you can buy it anywhere, you know, and not even have to listen to it if you don't have a vinyl player. Somebody that likes CDs or generally likes the music anywhere, of course you can buy the CD version, which is probably just as good as this, but less nice because it's obviously still got this cover, but it looks better on vinyl naturally. So yeah, it will not be for everybody, I must admit. I wouldn't recommend this to every single fan. I simply recommend it to classic fans who like Doctor Who music, either fans of 60s Doctor Who or the Second Doctor, or generally fans of Silva Screen as a whole who have collected the rest of this series, because I think that it will be a really nice thing to have in your collection by the very end, almost having a catalogue of many different styles of music from many different composers throughout the 50 years of Doctor Who. Really handy is if you are sort of on the edge still about buying this release, you can in fact listen to some of the previews online as well to see if this music will exactly be to your taste. But yeah, that is it for this review. Hope you've enjoyed it. My next Silva Screen review will of course be of the 5 Doctors, which has been released alongside this vinyl, which no doubt will be coming also on the way soon as well, along with a few other vinyl reviews in the future from Big Finish, because I know that there is a few of those coming out later this year as well, so I'll need to get tracking down those again after the rather big drama of it all last time. Watching, I'll just see you all in more Doctor Who reviews at some point in the near future. Bye for now.